Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bottom Six Podcasts. We're your hosts, Alex, Tyler, and Trevor. And let's jump into it. Trevor, I'm still waiting for an update on Brady Tkachuk. What's going on with that? Why is he not signing? You know he's going to go to December. It's going to be an Nylander situation. I'm going to roast you every podcast for it until he signs. But give me an update. What's going on? What are you hearing from the Senators' end?
There's literally no update at this time, so... It's like plain and simple. I was like, has he signed yet? No.
At the 11th hour,
it's just a waiting game.
At the 11th hour, he's gonna get offer sheeted.
Yeah, by Arizona.
Going to Calgary, play with his brother.
Yeah, or Calgary. Yeah, Calgary would be pretty good.
Well, let's get into this episode's topic.
That's enough of that.
Talk. I'm fucking done.
All right. Let's get into the Central then. Let's get into the Central. That was hilarious, though.
Starting off with Arizona. Arizona.
Yeah, a team that we can all skip here. Let's move on. What's the next team on the list?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's enough talking about Arizona for one time.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw, basically, it looks like the entire team switched out, except for Keller, Schmaltz, Kessel, Chutrin. Looks like he's, still there. I don't know who else really is. No. I think the rest of the team pretty much got fucking traded out after that point.
They brought in a shit ton of bad contracts, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, and it's like,
they
did a huge jumble with all the trades and dumps that they did.
Yeah, brought in Eriksson, Roussel, and Beagle. Great start with Vancouver. And brought in Ladd. Okay.
Both sides got ripped
off.
off.
They brought in some depth guys, some singles, some O'Brien, some Boyd, and then on the defense, Strom and Gossespierre. Okay, just take it on workout. And then instead of having your Kempers and Ritas, you now have your Huttons and Coronars. That's gonna be fun.
Like, who even is Joseph Coronar? I never even heard of this dude.
He was kind of like a backup to like fringe goalie for San Jose.
Oh, for San Jose.
He'll be their
acquired from.
He'll be their starter by the end of the year. Oh god,
and it's like San Jose. Their goaltending was it's absolute dog shit. And you're trading for a goalie from them. Bad move.
I just want to say, fuck you, Arizona. You should have traded Kemper to fucking Edmonton and not Colorado. You selfish bastards. We needed Kemper.
Well.
Gotta find your
Colorado elsewhere. Wanted him a little more, basically, at the end of the day. And I
think Arizona wanted Bouchard or Broberg, and it's like you can fuck right off.
You're
not getting either of them.
That's the thing. Those are pretty much two of your future defensive core. So you're in a win now mode. There's no point in trading them, but you do need goaltending. But yeah, as Trevor said, you're going to have to find something elsewhere, maybe at deadline, maybe close to the deadline. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen with the Oilers. Probably a deadline acquisition.
I hope so.
You're going to have to, because like, one of Smith or Koskinen is going to get injured at some point in the year.
Maybe they can get Fleury off Chicago when they're out of the playoffs.
I'll talk about that more in my Chicago analysis, but I think they might surprise some people this year.
I'm sure Edmonton could have given a better trade for fucking Fleury than what they got. Like giving him.
I guess they just wanted him off the books because I think
it's a salary. That's the thing, though. Could you afford? I don't think you could afford even half of his salary unless you traded a decent piece.
You would have had to trade. Probably would have had to get rid of Koskinen, but who's taking Koskinen's $4 million?
Yeah, so Arizona traded out quite a few core pieces, being they got rid of Dvorak, they got rid of Garland, they got rid of OEL, they got rid of Kemper, they got rid of Goligoski. It's just, they completely gutted the team. It's like their first line, the way I see it, is you got Keller, you got Schmaltz, you got Kessel. Yeah, sure, it's a fine line, but it's like, come deadline, you're losing probably Kessel, probably almost certainly, and then maybe Keller, Schmaltz. It's like, go for shade right, everyone.
They're basically just going full tank. Like last year, I think they had that penalty I think they had that draft pick penalty because of the testing they did early the year before. So this year, it looks like they really stocked the cupboards and they're just going like full rebuild. Like, okay, we need to just. I mean, it looks obvious they gutted the entire roster, for God's sakes. You got a bunch of randoms on it, and they're going to trade them all come deadline, the ones that are decent enough to collect anything.
I'd say this lineup still looks better than Buffalo, though.
It does.
I will say that.
There's
much.
at least some NHL names on here, like Ghost Bear. He's still he's a decent defenseman. DeSingle's decent. Andrew Ladd, I don't know if he's the hottest commodity anymore, but I mean, still, it's a veteran NHLer. It's a guy who can play
Ladd
games.
like? I thought Ladd's career was over.
No, he's still on Arizona. I don't know if he's on LR.
I thought Ladd.
He got his race for Tria, so if he plays, that's still
Is he
in
injured?
question.
Is he on like LTIR or something? Like he was just a cap dump. Is that essentially what it was? In Arizona,
he was part of a cap dump deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Travis Boyd, former Leaf legend. He actually was decent here. Like again, he's not going to be a superstar there, but like he's a decent player that fits a spot on the bench essentially, and he could pot a goal here and there. And he's a hard worker. I did like him on the Leafs. I was sad when we lost him, but you know, the way of the road. Sometimes that's what happens with waivers and all that. I don't really see. I mean, Hutton, I guess maybe will be okay. Strawman maybe will be okay. He's kind of old.
All right,
you know.
fuck this team. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Speaking of flurry with Edmonton, let's get with Chicago, the team who actually got him. So they didn't really do too much. They've got
Too much. What are you talking about? Their offseason was
forward
insane.
still.
They got Johnson. They got Seth Jones. They got Caleb Jones, the brother from Edmonton. Even McCabe's
What
decent.
did you say? Caleb? Did you just call him Caleb Jones?
Caleb. Yeah,
Caleb?
who the fuck's named Caleb, man? Like, how many times have I...
There's mad people named
I
Caleb,
literally
bro.
have never
What are you
met
going
anybody
on
by
about?
that name.
Caleb.
I literally...
Caleb Jones. That's his new name. Caleb. All right,
Yeah,
Paul.
That's my
let's
experience
chill out
with
here.
saying that name. Zero, because I've never said it.
Caleb.
So that was my...
Caleb Jones.
That's my guess. That was my Don Cherry on
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've added bigger pieces, so it's like they're looking to contend a bit more, but it's like a couple guys in here.
And I'm pretty
couple
sure
guys
Taves is
out,
back.
So yes, it sounds like he's going to start the year, so he's over this illness that was kind of hovering over him the past year, so that's good to see for him.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It'll be... I think part of like their season success will depend on him and his ability to bounce back from that missed season. Because it's kind of like, is he going to come back and be the same player, or is he going to be, I don't know, still getting his legs underneath him because he missed an entire year?
And I think that with Taves coming back, it's a big question mark whether he'll be able to rebound or not. But I think the next big thing would be if Tyler Johnson can fill that top six role. I mean, he looks sick in Tampa, and I'm a big fan of Tyler Johnson, but he also played bottom six in Tampa, so it would be nice to see if he can step in and take over as the top center if Taves can't go. But, I mean, if those two guys aren't going, they're not exactly that deep on center. Like, they got Strome next and Borgstrom and Gadet, but, I mean, those aren't top six centermen right there.
Well, and Johnson, I couldn't even see him stepping into that top line role. He did play, like, a couple of years in Tampa as a second-line center, but obviously, once their depth grew, he got pushed down to, like, more of a third-line, fourth-line role, which, I mean, it's fair to say on other teams he would be a second-line player because he is pretty solid. And they got Kirby Dach actually kind of stepping into the lineup after that injury last year, I believe. With World Juniors.
I really
he
hope
injured
that
himself.
kid bounces back.
Yeah, so that's the thing. He could be a stud.
Like Kirby Dach.
He could come back and be a stud too, and like he's playing with DeBrincat and Johnson. It looks like with the line setups we got here, so that could be a pretty formidable second line.
Their D.
I think the main, it's the defense that is questionable. It's like you've got your Seth Jones. That's like everything around it. DeHaan, McCabe, Murphy, Caleb Jones, Stillman. It's like they're all right, but it's like it's not really gonna backstop you to a playoff spot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Luckily for them, the West isn't as strong as it used to be, so they could possibly sneak into a wild card, but they're gonna need everybody firing. Taves, Johnson, Kane will probably still be
Kane
sick.
will probably be.
Kubalik is also going to be a huge question mark. Like, if he can keep how he's been playing, like, he can really help power that offense. But if those big guys aren't going, this team's not going to go far, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's why I kind of wanted to say is I feel like they will sneak into the playoffs. But I think it's going to be one of two stories. I think it's going to be like a resurgence of like, oh my God, Chicago's all of a sudden really good again. And they're going to be like second in the division or something crazy like that. Or it'll be the typical expected of like, they kind of picked up, like got another step ahead of themselves. They're better than they were in former years. Taves came back and picked up a role. And then they sneak in wild card, which is probably the more likely scenario. But I could see that, that story of like, oh, Chicago is randomly good again. Like, fuck the NHL. Watch out. Chicago's randomly good. Because it just seems like they're one of those teams that do that. Like, they might have an off year, but then the next year they bounce back. So I wouldn't be surprised with that outcome either.
Yeah. And another big thing is Fleury. Like, I love Fleury. He's a great
Won the
goalie,
Vezina last year.
Yeah, he doesn't have Vegas or Pittsburgh in front of him. Like, he's had two pretty strong teams in front of him. Now, if he can find his, when Pittsburgh was kind of on their downfall there and he was still playing pretty good, like, if he can find that playing behind Chicago, I think he'll be fine. But if Fleury's not going again either, like, this team's going to be in trouble.
That's the interesting thing with them.
Because who the fuck is Lankinen? I don't even know.
Lankinen's actually a fairly good, like, he stepped in last year, like he was like a fairly like I could see that like I'm not saying this is going to be a tandem in Chicago, but for the games in which he's going to play, I don't think he's a bad goalie whatsoever.
Oh, still a young kid. He's 17, 14, and 5, 301 goals against average, and a 909 save percentage last year, which isn't terrible. I mean, it was his first.
It's
year
a positive
playing
win
NHL,
record,
so that's pretty. Yeah, his first year in the NHL, so that's pretty huge.
Like, and the team sucked in front of him. The team was not like this roster.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on, like, it isn't outstanding. It definitely doesn't look like a Stanley Cup winning roster, but it's a big upgrade from what they had last year.
It's much better than what the team looked like last year.
Exactly, yeah. Like, they made some improvements.
Because they lost Taves and Doc, which was huge losses last year.
Yeah, like they knew that they weren't going far. And that Seth Jones, like, acquisition, like, I think they're really banking on him, like, I think pretty much stepping up and being the next Duncan Keith for him, because since they traded Duncan Keith, I think they're literally thinking, like, yeah, he's the next guy that's going to basically carry our blue line, and hopefully maybe some of these younger guys that are around him will kind of learn a little bit from him. I guess we'll see. Like, I think McCabe's a respectable, like, second pair D, so I don't think that's too bad. DeHaan, I don't know if he's a first pairing D, but they got some okay pieces to fill, like, a lineup. Like, I wouldn't be too... Yeah. If I was a Chicago fan, I'd be happy that at least we have a competitive roster here.
Yeah, like, they're gonna be an interesting team, to say the least.
Yeah, exactly. I guess with that said, should we move on to Colorado? Trevor, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was essentially going to get to the same point. If we want to get into a team where might see a bit more contending out of this year in the Colorado Avalanche, it's like they've done a fair few things. It's like for the guys they've brought in, it's more like depth pieces, like other than for Kemper, let's say. But that's like they've lost some big names though. They've lost Saad, they've lost Donskoy to the draft, or the expansion draft rather. They've lost Graves, they've lost Grubauer. They've had some big names leave, but you still look at this lineup. It's one solid lineup that can compete for the top of the division.
Well, because they had some, like, I think the biggest loss for them was losing Grubauer, but they did great in replacing him with Kemper, because Kemper is a solid 10 as long as he's healthy. And I mean, I guess that was really Colorado's issue with Grubauer too. He was good when he was there and in the lineup, but it was a question mark if he was healthy all the time. So I guess that's maybe no different than what they had before, but I think he's a decent replacement. I think Ryan Murray, like, they picked him up too. Like, that's a solid defensive pick. It looks like Bowen Byram's, like, stepping into a role too. So, like, their young prospect defenseman's already kind of in the NHL. Like, their defensive lineup doesn't look too bad. And they got, was it Devon Taves last year? Looks like they retained him too. So, I don't know. They got a pretty solid lineup. Like, when you're just looking at, I mean, obviously the legendary Nazem Kadri, Leaf legend.
Fucking love Kadri still. Absolute beauty.
That's the thing. He's a great player and he has a lot of heart, but he just needs to cool his head in the playoffs. He gets a little too crazy.
If he can actually, I think if he wasn't suspended, they probably would have beat Vegas. Like, he would have been a huge key piece to that Vegas series.
Yeah.
But of course, he boneheads like he bonesheads all the time and got his bonehead suspended. Just a bonehead move,
Yeah,
Kadri.
he basically pulled a Kadri and he screwed his team over, and that the Leafs only, we know that too well because he did it literally 2 years in a row for us. Like, hopefully he's third time's the charm. Hopefully he smartens up after this point. But yeah, that's the thing. He's a key piece of that second line and that top six core. So losing him does a decent amount of damage. I'm interested to see Trevor. I see you got Newhook in the lineup here. I'm interested to see how he does because he's a player that I really enjoyed watching in the World Juniors last year. And I think he got some game time with the Avalanche. Maybe it was in the playoffs because Kadri got suspended. I'm not exactly sure, but I do think he got some NHL experience last year as well, and he looked fairly good.
My prediction for Colorado is I have a big one here, and I'm gonna say President's Trophy winner this year. That's who I've got winning the Presidents, because the West is a lot weaker than the East, and I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth in the East. I think Tampa's going to split games with Florida, Boston, Toronto, and vice versa. They're all going to be splitting games, and I think it's going to be such a tight race that no one's really going to pull away, whereas Colorado's going to be playing fucking much weaker, like Arizona, Nashville, Dallas, Winnipeg, Minnesota. So I think Colorado's going to win the Presidents this year. I'm calling it now.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, it's hard to disagree because, the East does look pretty solid, so it likely will be a much closer race on that side.
Yeah, and then if we get along here, we've got.
Hold on, I got some big news actually just coming in right now. Kraken has named their first captain in history.
Okay. Can we make a guess?
Surprise
Can we make a guess?
Yeah, make a quick
My
guess.
guess is Giordano.
Trevor?
I'm thinking the same.
Oh, shocker, boys. You're right. Mark Giordano will be the first captain of Seattle Kraken, which comes as no surprise. Been a captain for many years. He's probably one of their better defensemen, if not their best defenseman.
Yeah.
So congrats to Giordano on becoming the first captain in Kraken history.
How's it feel, Phil? How's it feel to lose your captain?
And now he's a captain of another team.
Yeah, now he's a captain of another team. Fools.
That's all. Now you can move on to Dallas.
Yeah, so they have pretty much the same lineup. It's like they've got a couple pieces that they brought in. They brought in Holtby from Vancouver, which kind of confuses me because now they've got a whole bunch of goalies, but it's like some are injured, some might be playing. It's kind of all over the place. It's like otherwise they brought in Suter as well after his buyout out of Minnesota. But it's like they haven't really lost anyone too significant. It's like Dickinson was probably like a top 9, maybe Oleksiak is a top 4D, but they kind of filled those holes.
I would say Oleksiak is probably their biggest loss.
Yeah.
And like you said, signing Ryan Suter can probably fill that role. Like he might not be worth what he was getting paid in Minnesota, but he's getting paid a lot less money in Dallas, so I think that was a solid pickup for him because he's still got some good hockey left in him.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I would say he replaced Oleksiak, but I would say that's probably their only loss was Oleksiak. Like, other than that, pretty much the same team. So
I think this is the same roster that made the Cup Finals in 2020. I'm pretty sure it's like pretty much the same.
Minus Corey Perry.
Yep, minus Corey Perry and a couple other guys, but I mean,
wouldn't that be fucking hilarious if he loses again this year, but with Tampa?
Oh God, yeah, and it's Dallas.
Oh my God, could you imagine that?
My God, yeah, that'd be hilarious.
3 years in a row.
He's just cursed. That's the thing too with Dallas. If they don't get COVID, I'm assuming they're vaccinated now because last year they all got hit with COVID, which I think slowed them down. So they could be a team to watch out for in this division.
And wasn't Sagan out for a big portion of the season last year?
I think didn't he get a surgery or something like that?
Yeah, which is a huge loss. So that's probably why they didn't play to their standards.
Yeah.
But I could see Dallas squeaking back into the playoffs.
Yeah, kind of having a bit of a resurgence. That's what I'm thinking too. Like this year might be a better year for them, so I wouldn't count them out. I would keep them as like a sleeper pick, just in the back of the mind of like watch out for them. Even and Minnesota, the next team we're getting into, that's another team we're going to have to like think about as like a. I don't even know if you'd consider them a wild card team anymore because it seems like they've kind of solidified themselves as at least a pretty decent team in this division.
Yeah. So they lost, or they got Gauthier, Goligoski, Kulikov, I kind of liked Kulikov. I mean, we didn't get a big sample size of him in Edmonton, and I think that's kind of, another AA kind of signing. It was just shortened season, never really got to see too much of him. Maybe if they would have saw more, they might have re-signed him, but they just didn't see him enough, so they let him walk. Jordy Ben, that's a good pickup. John Merrill, Rem Pitlick, I'm not sure who that is. And then they lost Parise, Bonino, Suter, Cole, Saucy. So, I mean, they didn't really change too much of their lineup. They added a couple pieces that covered the pieces they lost. They got some huge contracts off the book. Like, losing Parise and Suter is not ideal, but
I think they got better with some of these moves, honestly. I think it was a good decision of them to cut their losses and let Ryan Suter and Zach Parise walk at this point. I mean, I thought at least cut Parise because he seemed like he was playing like fourth line on the team. It's like, why do you even have this guy anymore? Suter was a little more surprising, but I guess it makes sense to let them both go at the same time. Just move on from both of those contracts, right?
No, and then
both signed the same day, both might go the same day.
Exactly. They lived and died together on the Wild. So, but I think just looking at the roster, I think it was a good move. I think their roster's looking younger. It's looking like it fits more of what they're wanting to do.
Bringing in Goligoski, I mean, he puts up decent numbers on the back end, so he could possibly help with the power play, maybe the second unit. But they've got, like, I don't know, probably Spurgeon and Dumba probably quarterbacking that. But again, Goligoski could be another option if they need him.
Yeah, I'm guessing he replaced Carson Soucy, because it sounded like when he got picked in the expansion by Seattle, he was like he had a decent year with the Wild. So
yeah, he was kind of like top 4, top 6 D-man on the left. So it's like with the additions of Kulikov, Merrill, and Ben, who are all left shots, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of filled that
trying
down,
to see which one of the three or which two of the three will stick in the line type of thing. And then I guess you got a seventh D-man there too. But yeah, their roster looks decent. It looks competitive. I think they're probably going to sneak in the playoffs again this year.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is definitely going to compete for a playoff spot. I mean, Talbot's kind of found his game again, which is nice to see. I really liked Cam Talbot, but Edmonton played him way too much, never brought in a backup.
Yeah. It's just a load management thing, right? And I think that's what's going on with Minnesota. They're like keeping him, like getting him, he's playing as the starter, but they're giving him rests where he needs, so he's not dead by the time the year comes. Like that one season, he played like 70 games, I think, for you guys. It was insane.
Bro, one year he was 42, 22, and 8. That's 70 fucking games.
Yeah. So 70 games, exactly. That's a fuck ton of hockey for a goalie to play. And he had a great record, too. So, like, for that amount of games, he had a good record.
Yeah, he faced over 2,000 shots that year. Like, that's insane.
But, I mean, you could see that it definitely beat up his body, because, I mean, even the year after, he wasn't, like, as good. Like, it's like he needed to recover from all that shit.
The next year, he played 65 games.
Jesus Christ.
Or 67. Yeah, so the year before, he played 73 games because he got pulled. And then the following season. So his 3 years in Edmonton were 56 to start. Then he played 73, and then he played 67. That's a lot of fucking games for a goalie to play.
The Oilers just abused him.
Yeah. And he had a good year, and then they fucking just were like, oh, we can just play Talbot another 70 games. Like, we don't even need to bring in a backup goalie. Good old fucking Peter Chiarelli.
I mean, really, that's like what Edmonton's issues were for a while. It was just goaltending. Like, the last good starter I remember you guys having was Dwayne Rolson when you went on that cup run.
It's been a few years since they've had Talbot had a good year. One good year.
Yeah, he had one
good year.
The other two,
they burnt him the fuck out.
But, like, one of those legitimate starters where it's like, I don't know, like, you know that he's going to be consistent year in and year out.
Yeah, last year he had a 19-8-5 record, 915 save percentage, and 2.63 goals against average, which is pretty solid.
That's pretty solid. Can't complain about that at all.
It's not like top numbers in the league, but it's still solid. So
at least he's found a new home that he's found some comfort in, at least.
That's good for him. I'm happy for him.
All right, well, I guess we should get into Nashville here.
We get into the Preds. They didn't really do much. They brought in Reddick for a backup. They brought in Myers after getting rid of Ellis. So it's like, this roster's just about the same. So it's probably just a middling
Well, and they also got
team,
Cody Glass in
the way I see
that
it.
Ellis trade.
The fact that they have
Yeah.
Duchesne as their second line center really scares me. Like, they're going to have a rough season.
Well, they got Johansson as their first line center, and it's like, I don't think he's been playing at a first line center pace for a long time.
Buddy, I think he hasn't been good since he fucking played in Columbus.
Yeah, so it's just like their center depth looks like absolute rubbish.
Yeah, like, it's nothing.
That's like their
It's not-
defense still looks acceptable. Their goaltending
Like,
is
having
okay.
Roman Josi
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got Roman Josi still backs up, and Myers at home.
Well, Ryan Johansson had, with Nashville, he had a 34 and 42, 61 and 82, 54 and 79, 64 and 80. So he's been on the down, been on a downcline the last couple of years, but it's not like he was that terrible for them.
What's the thing? It's like he
That's not what
shouldn't
you
be
want
in
as your number one
Yeah,
center.
like that's your first line. Like he should be playing like the second line. What they're paying Duchesne, he should be playing first line, but he's obviously hasn't proven to be that. But this to me looks like a
They've
team
got a
that either
lot.
needs to retool or like which I don't know if that's what they did with some of the moves they made, or if they're thinking of starting to do a rebuild. Maybe they're just waiting to see how this season goes. But I don't think it's going to go as good as they think.
It's kind of a change of the guard, because with Pecorine announcing his retirement, it's now, all right, UC Saros, you're going to be our number one goaltender. It's like, he was fairly solid last year, but with the lineup that's in front of him, he might struggle a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it's just like I'm just looking at some of their lower, like Janot. Is that what his name is? Trennan, Oliver. I have no fucking clue any of those are. Grimaldi, Cousins, and Kunin. At least like I know those are NHLers, but again, they are bottom sixers. Tolvanen, I think, is supposed to be one of those guys they're waiting to break out a little. Like I think he was one of their higher draft picks, but I don't think he's hitting the potential they expected. And Sissons, to me, that's like a bottom six forward
I
that
would
for
hate
some
to-
reason is on the second line. So even Granlund,
Yeah, I would
like
hate to break
Granlund's
it
on the
to
first
them,
line.
but I don't think Tolvanen's going to be breaking out with Duchesne and Sissons as his line.
No, like that's trash. Like just look
That's
like
a very rough looking second.
your
line.
best forward is Philip Forsberg, and like he's not really. I don't even think he's a point per game player per se. Like I think on most other teams with a stronger offense, he'd probably be on a second line, not even a first line. So it's like you don't even really have a definitive first line superstar up front. You got like some good solid, like I don't know. You got a decent top six presence, but it's kind of pathetic compared to some of the other teams in the league. I guess it's not Buffalo, at least.
Yeah, Forsberg had 32 points in 39 games last year, so that's not.
He's
terrible.
close. He's like just kind of been under a point per game as a player. So I mean, but that's the thing. Maybe he would score more if he actually had better line mates. I guess really that's the thing. He probably could hit that plateau if he actually had somebody on his line that was also at first line caliber.
Forsberg would be a great second line winger on any other team in the NHL.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
I don't think he's a top. He's not the guy you want powering your offense. He's kind of like another Phil Kessel. He puts up decent points, and he's a good secondary helping player. But for him to be trying to power your offense, I don't think is the way.
well, that's the thing. It's like imagine Edmonton or the Leafs got him. How perfect our second lines would look with him on it.
Oh, imagine top six in Edmonton: Hyman, McDavid, Puljujarvi, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Philip Forsberg.
That'd be disgusting.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Good luck defenses.
like on a team with strong offense like that, he's like perfect to slide into that second line wing spot.
Yeah. He would be perfect. Edmonton, make it happen. Trade whoever you have to. And he's still he only makes $6 million, and he's 27. Like he doesn't have a terrible cap hit for him. Like I'd say he's around that kind of a.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's
number-wise.
affordable.
He's a UFA next year, so maybe Edmonton can try and pick him up next season.
Okay. So what he's got this year and next year still on contract?
No, this year's his last year.
Oh, okay. So that's the thing. He might be
UFA in the summer.
he might be a deadline acquisition for somebody. If Nashville retains half, $3 million is a little
Yeah.
easier to squeeze onto the cap.
And you got teams that will probably part with the first and second round pick or one of the two.
Oh yeah, at least a
get
first. You think a team would at least give up a
Yeah.
first, and maybe I would think a first and probably a rostered player of some kind that like maybe helps make the cap more manageable. Like I know for Toronto, for instance, if they wanted to get him, they would have to be sending like a Kerfoot out, for instance, or something, just to make the cap
Yeah.
space work. But yeah, then I could see like a first rounder going the other way too in that case. If Toronto, from Toronto's side, if they were trying to go for him, which I don't know if I'd want them to spend that much on just a deadline pick of Forsberg, but that's kind of what it's probably going to be when it comes to the deadline for trading for him.
So I'd say Nashville's probably
They're probably on
a
the
fringe
outside.
wild card team.
Yeah, they're probably on
Probably
the outside.
looking, if they can get going, like that top six can actually click. I'd say maybe a wild card, but for the most part, I'd say they're probably on the outside looking.
They have a lot of factors of like hoping that guys basically stand out and step it up to another level. But just from looking at what they have, I think a lot of like their main dudes are pretty much what they are. Like Duchesne and Janssen, like they're not getting any younger, they're not getting any better. So likely a weaker season. Plus they lost Arvidsson last year in that trade, which I know he had his injury history and stuff like that, but I always thought he was one of their better forwards as well. So they're probably going to miss him too on that wing, just from because I think Skizzen's like he was in the bottom six when Arvidsson was there, but now that he's gone, Skizzen's got that second line spot. So you can definitely see the depth diminish on the wing because of that.
All right, on to St. Louis.
Yep, let's hit them up.
St. Louis made a couple big moves. They brought in Saad from Colorado, and they traded for Pavel Buchnevich. But then they've also lost a couple pieces in Schwartz, Sammy Blais, Hoffman. They've lost Vince Dunn, and then also lost Zach Sanford. So it's like a lot of these guys are depth pieces that they've lost, but it's like you still look at this lineup.
Ooh.
It's no slouch.
That sucks. They lost two big names to fucking Seattle.
That's the thing. It's like when I'm looking at this, I actually think their roster got weaker from what it was previously. But the caveat is Tarasenko's done his surgery. I know he's had his disputes with the team, but he could be that turning piece. Like if he manages to turn back to normal Tarasenko, I mean, maybe they're still planning on trading him. But if he sticks in the lineup and he hits that old pace that scoring pace that he used to, they could be a legitimate threat this year.
Even if he doesn't, they can still trade him and get a pretty big name guy back for him. Like they would definitely get a player if they traded him.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing I think because they still have a pretty solid lineup, and like getting Buchnevich, I think that's a pretty solid pickup to replace Schwartz. Vince Dunn, yeah, that's a big loss. Mike Hoffman, I don't know how well he even did with St. Louis last year. I mean, I didn't really see much of that division, but
He's kind of all over the lineups. It's like sometimes like you're used on a hot streak for a
he's
bit.
a streakier player type
Next
of thing.
stretch, you just go cold.
Either way,
So-
there's some offensive there from him that they're probably going to miss. So, but I mean, still looking at their lineup, it's still like a respectable lineup. I could see them making the playoffs with this team, but I think Tarasenko will be that definitive piece of like making them one of the better teams in the division versus more of like a wild card team. So I think that's going to be the big difference for them this season.
I would say it comes down to how Perron, Buchnevich, Saad, and Kyrou do. I think those are going to be main pieces they need going all season long. And if they can get that, because I like Shen there down the middle. I mean, he might not be a top six player, but he hustles, he works hard, so I like
Brady
that.
Shen's pretty
But
good.
if he's got Saad and Kyrou going on his wings, I think he'll be perfectly fine in the top six. And then you still got Ryan O'Reilly, who's still one of the best two-way players in the game. Like,
And Buchnevich is probably just going to be even better because I mean New York's a good team, but I think it looks like he's getting a better opportunity and more ice time like in St. Louis, so I could see him putting up some like career numbers possibly this season if he's going to be playing on that first line with O'Reilly. And I know Perron's like a pretty consistent player I find too. Like you watch him every year, yeah, he's not like an 80-90 point dude, but you're probably guaranteed to like get a solid 60 points out of him. And whenever the Leafs played him in the past, I always found he was like the clutch goal scorer for them. Like he always managed to find that effort kind of at the end of the games and pot a goal if they needed it. So he's kind of a solid like pain in the ass clutch player for them too on that first line.
Yeah, I wish you would have done that in Edmonton.
You just didn't keep him around long enough. That was like our
No, they only gave him. He had one good year, he had 57 points, and then next year he had 19. They're like, all right, see ya, trading ya, peace out, fuck you.
Yeah, and it was like probably an injury or something that was nagging him, and then he just got rehabbed and all of a sudden back to normal form. St. Louis has a habit of that too, because they stole. Well, I guess maybe the least voluntarily handed Steen over to them, but like Steen was another player that was up and coming. Leafs trade him, and he immediately becomes like a top line forward. It's like we could have used that guy.
Piron had 58 points in 56 games last year, so that's huge.
That's
if he
fucking.
can continue that.
That's a big year for him.
But the big thing is Binnington. Binnington needs to find his old form, or they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, which I feel like for him, the COVID seasons were affecting him.
Yeah.
At least that's my guess on it, because I know I'm pretty sure he came out saying like that he wasn't really, like he didn't like the whole bubble style of things.
Yeah, and you have to think with this team, it's like if they're gonna try and go for a deep playoff run, maybe add a piece on the defense, because it's like your Krug, your Falk, your Parayko, it's like that's a solid top four, but it's like Scandella, Nicola, Bortuzzo, Wallman, Santini, it's like they're alright, but it's like maybe you want to shore up that left side, get another top four over Scandella. It's like Scandella's not terrible, but it's like I'd probably prefer him as a top six than a rather top
That's
four.
probably why they wish they were able to hold on to Vince Dunn, because I'm assuming they would have.
He would have filled that slot.
Exactly, he would have been perfect. So they're probably missing him in that situation. But maybe that's what they are thinking. Like, hey, let's see how we're doing closer to the deadline. And if they're like in contention in the running, I could see them making a trade to shore up that defensive spot. But yeah, I mean, St. Louis, I think they have a chance. But yeah, there's a few factors there that they're going to live or die on, essentially.
I think a lot of the West is going to be. It could go anyway. Like any one of those bottom teams could squeak in.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, it's not that's. Jesus Christ, Google! You scared the shit out of me.
I thought that was your girlfriend. Right. Like all of a sudden, I heard a woman's voice, and I'm like,
"Nah, man." Google just all of a sudden spoke up. Sorry, I don't understand. Like, can't be doing that, Google, when I'm home alone. Give me a heart attack. All right, that's probably a good segue into Winnipeg now.
Yeah, let's get into Winnipeg. They had a lot going on. Holy moly.
They've lost a lot of depth pieces, but there's one main thing with Winnipeg. They added on defense, and that is what they needed. They brought in Schmidt from Vancouver. They brought in Dylan from Washington. It's like, you look at this top six now compared to what it was last year, they've certainly done much better off than what they were.
Yeah, that was like one of their bigger, like Pionk. He's actually impressed me since they picked him up. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to step into a top two role, but he pretty much he was easily their best defenseman last year, and pretty much since they've got him, he's actually been a fucking beast on that lineup. But he's had not really anybody else around him to help him out, so getting a couple guys on that back end definitely help. And I mean, the Jets still have some pretty good offensive pieces, and I think with their Paul Maurice, he actually does have a good structure for their team, in a good system, and they seem to play it pretty well.
They've got a really good top six going for them. They have a solid looking
it's
top
just
six.
That's dirty. Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, Dubois, Stasny, and Ehlers. I mean, even the third line, Kopp, Lowry, and Nash, that's pretty fucking solid still.
I'd say that's one of the better third lines in the NHL for sure.
Yeah, I'd watch out for that's the thing. I'd watch out for Winnipeg this year. I think this is a team that is going to take a step forward from what they have in previous years, and they're going to be in the playoffs.
I agree. Because they still got Hellebuck.
Yeah.
And Hellebuck's one of the best goalies in the NHL. I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, easily. Hey, I mean, the last time I picked him in fantasy, it was he came off a bad year, so it seemed like no one wanted him. I was like, all right, he's one of the last elite tendies left. I'll pick him up. He ended up winning the Vezina for me that year and was one of the best players in fantasy. I'm like, okay, Hellebuck, solid choice to pick for a goalie. I'll keep that in mind.
Yep. Always a solid choice.
Yeah, so it's you can't really look down on Helly. He's always going to have a big year. And with the defense getting shored up like that, I feel like you can expect another solid year from him too. So this is a team to watch out for in that division, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I would definitely say a playoff team for sure for Winnipeg. I think they'll be one of the stronger teams in that division.
Yeah, that's all. I'm just looking at the teams that we went through now. It seems like they're one of the more standout teams, other than Colorado. Like Colorado, obviously, they're going to be top of the division, but
Yeah.
Winnipeg looks like they'll be in the mix.
All right, so we talked about all the Central. You want to do who we think's going to finish where?
Yeah,
Let's do it. Well, number 8, I think we're probably going to have the same across the board. It's going to be Arizona. That's not really a question here, unfortunately.
I'm going to agree with that and put Arizona at 8 as well.
Yeah, Arizona.
Sorry,
Yeah, they're
busy.
tanking hard this year.
Number 7, I'm going with Nashville here.
Let's see. Let me see here.
It's just the Central's just really strong.
You know
It's
what?
like,
I'm going to agree with you
Nashville's
on
not
that. I'm going to
terrible.
say Arizona last in 8th, Nashville 7th. Just as we were just chirping their team's depth, and now just looking back, like they don't seem to stack up as much, even compared to Chicago. I think Chicago will finish ahead of them.
Yeah, I think I agree too. I got Nashville there as well.
We do have a disagreement about to come up, though, as I don't think Chicago's going to be that good as you think there, Alex. I'm putting them at 6.
You know what? Like after we kind of went through everybody, I think that they probably are more situated. Like it does seem pretty obvious that they probably should be in that 6th spot, but I could see. Like I feel like them, Dallas, and Minnesota are 3 teams that might kind of flip flop between like 4, 5, and 6.
Like flip-flop.
Yeah, like I think that those are the 3 teams
Like-
kind of in that range, and they could kind of end up either way, anywhere. But I'm thinking out of those 3 teams, Dallas is probably the best of Dallas, Minnesota, and Chicago. So I'm gonna say I guess Dallas 4th, Minnesota 5, Chicago 6th. But they could rotate.
Now I know I said they could probably, but I'm going off the basics that I don't think the players that I said are going to get going, and I'm going to have I'm going to put St. Louis there.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I don't think St. Louis is going to have that good of a year. I'm going to say St. Louis is going to finish 6th. But like you said, it's going to be 4, 5, 6. I even say 3, 4, 5, 6 are going to be probably within 5, 6 points of each other. Like it's going to be a tight race there. But I'm gonna say St. Louis is going to have an off year, and they're going to finish 6th in the division.
Okay. I personally think you might be sleeping on them,
Yeah,
but that's
and
just
that's
me.
why I said I'm going to go off the book here. It's a little crazy, but I think they're going to fall apart there.
Well, going off our basis that we just pretty much established, I'm going with Minnesota at 5, same as Alex.
Okay.
I'm going to go Chicago.
Seems so.
Chicago at 5.
And then Dallas at 4, I guess.
Yep, taking Dallas at
I
4.
got Minnesota at 4.
Similar.
Minnesota at 4.
Okay, so essentially it's just the St. Louis pick that's really throwing me off with you because I'm going with Winnipeg at 3.
See, and I'm going with St. Louis at 3, and then Winnipeg at 2, Colorado at 1. But I will say, you know what? I'm going to change it up a little here where kind of what Tyler's saying, like from spot 3, from St. Louis basically down to 6, which would be Chicago. Maybe less so Chicago. I don't know if Chicago can leapfrog St. Louis, but I think those teams could really... I think that they're all going to be kind of around the same pace fighting each other to get those, like, final 2 or final couple spots in this division here. I think that there's going to be a bit of a battle, but I'm thinking Colorado and Winnipeg might actually be 2 of the more standout teams in this division.
So I got Minnesota at 4, Dallas at 3, Winnipeg at 2, and Colorado at 1.
So you both seem to have the Colorado Winnipeg. And I'm going to be the one off the board here. I'm saying St. Louis is 1.
Ooh.
And then Colorado at 2.
Wow.
Even better than
With-
Colorado. Oh my god.
I don't know
Bold
about
prediction
That's like-
here.
In their own division, I think it might be the case. Come playoffs, maybe not, but to end the regular season, I do have St. Louis at 1, and then Colorado following.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Well, you will have to
I mean,
see,
you
I
were
guess,
way
come
off
the end of the
there.
year. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it couldn't happen. I mean, for me, I do feel like Colorado's the standout team, and then it's Winnipeg. But it's like when I look at this division, like there isn't. It's not like the East where there's so many teams that I'm like, okay, these guys are powerhouses. It seems like it's actually a pretty balanced division in the sense that they're all kind of around the same range. Like they're all pretty good, but they're also not like really amazing teams like that you think are going to win the cup, but they could make a run still.
And that's, like I said, I have Colorado and Winnipeg as the top two, but then anyone out of St. Louis, Dallas, Minnesota, and Chicago can make the playoffs, I think, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's gonna be a question mark for the middle of the pack of this division, but for me, I'm pretty comfortable with Colorado, Winnipeg on top, and Nashville, Arizona at the bottom.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess Trevor's obviously the off the cuff one here with St. Louis topping the division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you better pick up Tarasenko or O'Reilly or somebody in your hockey pool tonight.
We'll have to see what happens.
All right, are we moving on, to the Metro now? We're done our Central.
Might not have the time. Might we save that for next time, and then we get one episode out for each, essentially.
Yes,
So
we did
we'll
talk
wrap
quite a
her
bit on
up.
this one. I see.
Yeah, we should probably wrap her up for this episode of the Central Division.
All right, well, thank you guys for watching the Bottom Six podcast. Hope you like our... Actually, wait, we didn't finish something yet. Or wait, are we going to do it in the next episode?
What's this?
We'll do it next episode.
We'll do it
Once I
next.
get
Yeah,
all of my
let's do all the
previews out.
divisions.
Okay, I'm getting too excited here, boys. I was like, I already want to do it. Okay, well, that's something exciting. Our
Viewers got.
if our viewers have made it this far and they're seeing our clothes, they can know that we have a special little treat for them at the end of the Metro video now. That a little bit of a teaser. Anyway, that's it for the Bottom Six podcasts. You guys have a great one. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good shit. We'll catch you later.